You have to show me where it says these things. I mean, I can respond, I'll say things that I know for certain he has said, because sometimes things are lost in translation, sometimes things are gained in translation. And while we're on the subject of translation, it should be noted, all translation is interpretation. All translation is interpretation. So when you read something, and it says, Guru Maharaj wrote this in Sanskrit, or Guru Maharaj wrote this in Bengali, and then there's a translation. That translation is based upon the capacity of the translator to render what they were able to extract from that. Don't take it literally. These are the words of Guru Maharaj. They are the words of a translator, an interpreter, someone who saw this word and on the basis of their capacity to think, I think it means this in my language. But it would be a mistake to think that these are Guru Maharaj's words. They're not. That's why we find when we read books that are in translation that were not spoken by Srila Guru Maharaj, in English, they don't sound like him. They sound like something else. And in this regard, once one book was being translated, and it just so happened that Srila Guru Maharaj, he spoke about the very thing that was being translated that morning. So I met with him in the afternoon because I was a little concerned. And I said, what they are translating, what you said this morning, that's not what they're translating. But his answer surprised me. He said, is anything coming through? And I said, yeah, definitely something's coming through. He said, then it has its value. He said, just as when you speak on a sloka, you're going to give a class, and you're going to speak on a sloka. Right? He said, according to your ability, it will be good if you get a chair on account of being, that'll be good. Because I need to see also the people. So he said, according to your ability, you extract something, right? And you're sharing that. He said, it doesn't mean that having done that, that you have exhausted all the possible things that can be said about that. But according to your ability, your capacity, you extracted something and shared that. And hopefully, we're talking about inspired representation. So suffice to say that all translation is interpretation. So I find very often when I'm asked questions along these lines, when someone says, Guru Maharaj said this, or Guru Maharaj said that, and if it doesn't sound like what I've heard from him, either it's possible, it's something I never heard before, but it's also possible that it was interpreted. What he said originally has been interpreted in a particular way. That's why I like to see the original remarks. So when these kind of questions come, I'll be happy if you show me in this book, on this talk, on this tape, and whether it's Srila Guru Maharaj or Srila Gurudev, and then I will try, according to my capacity, to interpret that. Same thing. Right? So, with regard to humility, in principle, Srila Guru Maharaj is saying, humility is the natural outcome of perceiving that one is in the proximity of greatness, or more specifically, divinity. It's not opposing, it's not posturing, it's not that, like an actor, they can say, in this scene you're very humble, and he can posture, pose as someone who is humble. Right? But rather, on genuine perception of greatness, automatically one feels themselves insignificant. A primary example is Kaviraj Goswami, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami. So he's saying, Jagai madhai hoite muise papishta, purishe rakito hoite muise lagista. I am more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, and I'm lower than the worm in the stool. These are not pleasant images. Gurudev said in Lakta, when we saw Shama Mohini and Gopi Kishore and Subal, we think of Lakta. It's funny how devotees become associated with temples, deities, others, and that's a good thing. So just by seeing someone, like Madhavendra Puri Sambandha Darajani, when when the Shanoria Brahman and Mahaprabhu are seeing each other, they're thinking, anyone who has this type of behavior, quality, characteristic, must have some connection with Madhavendra Puri. That's how we understand things in spiritual circles, is by dint of spiritual connections and qualities, characteristics, behavior. That's how we can detect really substantially who is who, what is what, and who's connected to whom. So it was in Lakta in St. Petersburg, Sri Sri Guru Gauranga, not Raman, that was in Calcutta, Radha Madhava. That was just in Calcutta. Radha Madan Mohan and Radha Raman Sund, they had their celebration. Anyway, so Radha Madhava Sundarji, there, Srila Gurudev, expressing very high things, but as a basis saying, first realize that you are a worm in a bucket of stool. I'm like, oh Maharaj, how can you say something so ugly? And with a big smile. Because he's telling the truth. From that position, and Guru Maharaj, if you want to like take the similar example and rephrase it in a nicer way, he said, would you rather be the king of a mountain of stuff, here, stool, or a worm in a bucket of nectar, there? Right? Srinvantu Vishay Amritasya Putra. You are children of the nectar world, of the nectar soil, not the mrityu world, the world of mortality. It's not your home, but the immortal world. Tanturajam risheti pashu buddhi imam jahi. After all, Rasa Lila and all these high, wonderful things, Rasa Lila, Uddhava Gita, what does Sukadeva at last tell the Purkit Maharaj? Thinking that you will die. That's animal intelligence. Don't do it. Don't think like that. You won't die. Why? Srinvantu Rishe Amritasya Putra. You're a child of the nectar world, of the nectar soil. Amrita. Mrityu. Amritam means no mrityu. No death. Immortality. Right? So, Kaviraj Goswami, he's saying this, but let's factor in all the things he said. That same person who says, Preme Mata Nityananda Kripa Avatar, Uttamadam Kichu Nakori Bichar. He tells how he got the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. He's trying to explain, how is it that he came to express Sri Chaitanya Charitamritam. In Guru Maharaj's words, the greatest literature to have ever seen the light of day in all time, all space, all creations. Right? All creations. This means it's more than Veda. Shruti bir vimrigyam. What the Vedas can only indicate. Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Tadama Rindavanam Ramya kachit brajabadu bargena cha kalpita. What they can only indicate the Brajagopis of God. Right? Their kalpita, their, Guru Maharaj said, the method they invented for worshipping Krishna, there's nothing, Radha Bhagavan Brajayesha Tanaya. There's nothing superior to this. Right? So that Charitamritam, we were just in Jagannath Puri, and we know there, we went to Gambhir, and we know the two high points of Chaitanya Lila, Jagannath Rath Yatra and the Gambhir. Why? Why are these the two focal points of Mahaprabhu's pastimes there? Because both of them are indicative of where separation reaches its zenith, its highest point. Right? That is the nature of Sri Chaitanya Avatar, besides the Mahavadanaya magnanimous distribution of Krishna Prem, his public service to everyone. What is his internal purpose? Gurudev phrased as, what is Mahaprabhu's tasting matter? Rupa Goswami has described, Pida bir navakalakuta katuda garbhasya nirvasano nishandena sudha madhurima hankara sankochanai prema sundari nandanandana paro yasyantare jagyantare gyayante sputamasya bakra madare stena vikrantaya. As Gurudev said, even an animal knows something about the joys of union. But the peculiar nectarine taste of separation, love and separation, that is only known to the select few. So, and Rupa Goswami compares it to being bitten by fresh cobra venom. How you're hemorrhaging, it has devastating effects upon you. And he said, it's like that while being bathing in a shower of nectar. Simultaneously, these two things. So in the Gambhir, we're told Mahaprabhu in the company of Swarup Damodar and Ramananda on what Gurudev calls the firebed of separation. And Guru Maharaj told, golden volcano, divine lava, the heart under the pressure of affection under intense pressure, that means separation, is squeezing out. There are volcanic eruptions that are streaming from the lotus mouth of Mahaprabhu in the forms of the Shikshastakam, which are taken to be original expressions of Srimati Radharani. So, Swarup Damodar, Swarupa Viditam, Sri Gauranamatam, Swarupa Viditam, Swarupam Bibranam Jagatamastulyam. No one compares the Swarup Damodar. That's why the steel frame structure of Charitamritam is built upon the concepts of Swarup Damodar. Anyone who has a concept that it is not in line with the concepts of Swarup Damodar is deluded or has deviated from standard understanding and description. So Kaviraj Goswami, why is this? These beginning slokas are Rupa Goswami and Swarup Damodar. The important foundation slokas in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamritam. Where did Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami get this? From Raghunath Das Goswami, who spent so many years in Puri observing Mahaprabhu and also as the assistant of Swarup Damodar. So what went from Swarup Damodar, from Mahaprabhu to Swarup Damodar to Raghunath Das Goswami, came to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And how did all of this come to him? As Raghunath got the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, Krishnadas Kaviraj also tells his story, how he got the mercy. of Nityananda Prabhu, and thereby entrance into Vrindavan, where he gets the mercy, approval, and empowerment of Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan to present Sri Chaitanya Charitamritam. So the person who's saying, I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, he says, if you hear my name, you'll lose all your pious credits. If you just hear my name. If you vibrate my name, you'll fall down. I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, lower than the worm in the stool. And then what did he say? Still, what's coming through me, I'm not writing this, but some higher power, Madan Mohan, they're moving my hand and making me write all these things. Right? That's what he's saying, like a puppet. As Ramananda told Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu's praising Ramananda for what he's expressing, he's saying, I'm like an instrument, like a veena, right? Guitar, and you're playing it, and then you're praising the guitar, but actually you're playing me and causing all these sounds to come out. That's how the higher devotees feel. So, he can say, yes, when I consider myself, I think in such a low position, but what's passing through me, there's nothing higher than this. Ahang vedmi sukhaveti vyasaveti naveti va. Right? And we're told that Sridhar Swami's commentary differed from what was given previously, and people were wondering whether or not it was authentic and legitimate, should be accepted. And they submitted to the Bharadraj deity of Mahadev Shiva. And they said this mantra came reverberating from the temple where Shiva says, I know the meaning of Bhagavatam. Sukadev knows the meaning of Bhagavatam. And Vyas, he may know and may not know. How is that possible? Vyas is the author. This is a very critical point. So, I mean, what's coming down and passing through the agent may exceed the capacity of the agent. That's also possible. This was Mahaprabhu's response to Sanatana Goswami when he's praising Mahaprabhu. You've given, formerly when you met with Sarvabhauma, he gave 9 explanations of Atmarama, then you gave twice as many, 18. That's 27. But now you've given 60, not touching upon the 27 given previously. This is beyond human. It's beyond human capacity. It's divine. And Mahaprabhu's response, oh, Sanatan, don't you know, one letter of Srimad Bhagavatam is infinite. A drop of the infinite is infinite. So, what is it? 60 explanations? Why only? Then, he said, and actually, by your association and your necessity, I feel another meaning awakening within me. And he gave the 61st explanation. That's what he's saying. By your necessity, I feel another meaning awakening within me. And what's passing through me, I may not understand at all. But what I can understand is that Krishna wants to grace you through me. That much I'm certain of. But what's passing through me may be beyond, maybe I understand, maybe I don't understand. That is the nature of divine revelation. So the devotees are offering themselves as agents, just as in Bhagavad Gita, nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin. And Arjuna offers himself as Krishna's agent. Right? Malini, what is the name of your town originally again? Yeah, Novosibirsk. So, when I was there, I don't know, 10 years ago or more, maybe 12 years ago. Yeah. Do you know when it was? Anyway, it was a long time ago. A yuga. Yuga also means 12 years. I asked Guru Maharaj about that once. And there was very cold. Like minus 30, 40, I don't know, but minus a lot. Right? And so I was thinking about these things, and then it occurred to me, in the line of Srila Guru Maharaj's thinking, that there are ceramics, when reduced to what they call absolute zero, or close to absolute zero as possible, they achieve a state of what's called superconductivity. And without getting into the science of this, which I couldn't if I wanted to, the idea is, we know, like wires connect, like a copper wire, current passes through it, but they get hot because we're told some resistance is there, and the resistance, what's the word? When it like sheds, dispel, you know what the word is? Huh? Yeah, but it's what happens when heat comes off of something. I can't think of the exact word. Anyway, so there's resistance to the current, translates into heat. But here we're told if these ceramics are reduced to absolute zero, they achieve a state of superconductivity. There's zero resistance to current, and so they become superconductors. So it occurred to me at that time that this is how to understand the depth of negativity and humility that is expressed by the Vaishnavas. Because on the one hand, there's no greater depth of humility being expressed, and at the same time, the output of current cannot be equaled or surpassed. So how is that possible? It's the highest level current that's passing through them and being expressed, and they're saying, I'm so low, so fallen. They become superconductors. So if we understand what Guru Maharaj is saying, is humility, there's no assertion, there's no aggressiveness in humility. Rather, it's the opposite of that. It's non-assertion, to the point of offering oneself as an instrument. And the greater the depth of humility, it means they're approaching, in this sense, absolute zero in terms of humility. Krishna consciousness is measured in an inverse. To the degree that one is non-assertive, non-aggressive, and conceives of themselves in a low position, we can understand that is the outcome of being in touch with deep, higher magnitude of spiritual substance. So Kaviraj Goswami, what he expresses in his humility is painful to hear, but if we measure it in the inverse, we can understand he's approached the absolute zero, right? Where there's zero resistance to current. Arjuna has zero resistance to current. Srila Prabhupada, Swami Maharaj had zero resistance to current, the order of the Guru. There's a current. Guru Maharaj sometimes calls it Radharani's suggestion. The suggestion comes for seva, and then ego creates resistance and is thrown off in a type of heat. Dissipation is the word, dissipation. Right? Whereas when there's zero resistance to that, as Prabhupada said in Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana, reading the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Vishwanath glosses this as the resolute determination to offer oneself fully to the order of Guru. That's what Prabhupada did. That's what Kaviraj Goswami does. It's what Arjuna does. Once in this regard, Prabhupada said, Arjuna, he chants the supreme mantra. I think, oh, you mean the Hare Krishna mantra? Not in this context. He said the supreme mantra, Karishye vachanam tava. I'm prepared to act according to your instructions. Guru Maharaj the Gurudev, will you act, are you prepared to act according to my instructions or follow your mind? It's Bhagavad Gita, it's personified. These are not trivial dialogue or conversation. It's very critical and important. Emana durmati sangsara vitor. There's a reason, everything's connected. They're not just random things being appreciated. They're all connected. So zero resistance to that current, offering oneself as an instrument, an agent. So Guru Maharaj says, when you give the class, we offer the flower garland to the book and then offer ourselves as agent for divine revelation. The book is posing as in a passive position, as a book, digital media, or any other way. Right? But actually it's spiritually conscious substance in a passive representation. So the devotees for whom the spiritually conscious substance is a living, dynamic, and accessible, palpable thing, they're offering themselves in service. Bhajaniya sarva sadguna vishishta. This is the natural outcome of one's really has some appreciation. Just to talk so much about Krishna, this, that, or the other thing, unless one offers oneself in service, and not only directly, but gopi bhartur padakamalayo dasa dasa anudasa. And Guru Maharaj spells it out quite clearly. Not only slave, but slave of the slave of the slave. Not even directly the slave. We know in recording, like, MIDI, the musical instrument digital interface. So you have, what do you call it? The master unit, and the other unit's called a slave. The slave does whatever you do on the master unit, the slave unit does. It's something like that. Master-slave relationship. But we're very afraid to hear these terms because of secular humanism. So we get nervous and start to sweat when we hear about slavery and master-slave relationship. Right? But what we ignore is when Krishna says, Ye yatam mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. If you become my slave, then I become your slave. The infinite comes under the control of the finite. That we fail to factor. Right? So on account of the humility of the devotee, that means the most deep, intense expression of negativity in Guru Maharaj's language. And this was my point in Novosibirsk long ago, that in New Age thought, which is primarily under the influence of humanistic thinking, they're always putting emphasis on being positive. You should be positive, think positive, talk, creative visualization, etc., and then you'll get a positive outcome. It all sounds good, but there's something lacking there as well. Because they fail to understand the value of negativity. Negativity is good in this context. We have another context where we're saying, no, there's the negative and the world of exploitation and the neutral position, world of renunciation and the positive world of service. That's not how we're talking. We're in another context now. We're talking about current. Here, negativity in my talk right now means humility. So the depth of negativity means the depth of humility. What is the outcome? It attracts the positive Krishna. Right? Radharani is the predominated moiety, the supreme negative. Krishna is the predominated moiety, the supreme positive. I remember as a child being given a magnet and two magnets. And knowing when you would put the positive, they go like, woo. You can't put them together, they repel each other. But when you take positive and negative, they go, poof. You can't keep them apart. That's what is meant. The supreme negative, Srimati Radharani, by her humility, her self-giving, her self-offering, her means aradhana, aradhita, means her way of serving is to offer herself, not to give other things. Right? You're saying, oh, I'll give something. That's another type of service. What is wanted here is Atma Samarpan, self-offering. That is what makes her who she is. Total self-oblivion and self-offering to Krishna without self-extinction. Right? That is irresistible to Krishna. He's drawn like a magnet in that way, just as Krishna himself, akarshan, means magnetic attraction towards the center on account of his beauty, charm, and sweetness. Radha, Madan Mohan, as we've mentioned, the whole world is spinning under the illusory influence of Cupid, the sexual principle, eros. It's what makes the world go round. It's what's the driving force of material existence. It's also the driving force of spiritual existence, if this world is a perverted reflection. Right? But that's why Madan Mohan is the Sambandhagyan deity. The first deity, Madan Mohan, who can break the bewildering attraction of Cupid, of eros, of the mundane erotic principle, with the prospect of spiritual eros. So we go from Madan Mohan to Govinda to Gopinath. So Krishna Conception, the beauty of Krishna, Koti Kami, Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham. 10 million Cupids. Krishna's 10 million Cupids personified as one. Right? What is that? Marak Swayam from Karnamritam. Comparing him. 10 million Cupids personified as one. One Cupid has this world in a spin, whirling, and everyone in it. 10 million Cupids personified as one. Krishna can break the stranglehold that mundane erotic principle has on the jiva. That's why Madan Mohan first. And interestingly, Kaviraj Goswami approached Madan Mohan, and Madan Mohan, Sambandhagyan deity of Sanatana Goswami. There are many things to be understood from this. Right? So, at any rate, that sort of intense negativity, which is the natural outcome of the proximity of greatness, is what Krishna finds irresistible. Now, Srila Guru Maharaj has mentioned that with regard to sometimes extreme, apparent, humble behavior of devotees, that in some instances he did not approve that. He gave his godbrother Professor Sanyal as an example, that on the day of the inauguration, the moving of Gandharvika, Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, from the hired house in Ultadanga to their new flagship center in the Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math. The devotees can imagine the huge festival. That's when Saraswati Thakur composed Pujala Ragapat Gaurava Bange, Matala Sarujana Bishairange, as the deities were in procession. Then after reaching there, they served so much prasadam, there's so many guests, everyone went to sleep late, they were tired, exhausted. And that Guru Maharaj's roommate is Professor Sanyal. And that night, Professor Sanyal tells Guru Maharaj the next morning, like, I almost died last night. Guru Maharaj, what? And he explains how he was on the verge of death, and then he saw Guru Maharaj resting, and he said, but I thought to tell you, but I thought, don't disturb the Vaishnava. He's worked so hard in service to his Gurudev. He needs his rest. His rest is seva. Don't disturb his seva. And Guru Maharaj said, he immediately went to Saraswati Thakur and told him this, and Saraswati Thakur, they got a doctor. And Guru Maharaj said, I thought, this type of humility is dangerous. And then we know Professor Sanyal again. He's worshipable. I mean, so many examples. Because in principle, we sort of get where he's going, but imitation would be suicide, in the words of Emerson. Anyway, he won't do anything unless he gets the order of the Vaishnava. So all the devotees are going on a preaching program. They go to the train station. They're all waiting at the platform. The train pulls in. They all run on the train. And they look out the window, and there's Professor Sanyal on the platform. Because a Vaishnava didn't tell him to get on the train. He will only move under the influence of the order of the Vaishnava. So someone says, Professor Babu, get on the train. Then he moves and gets on the train. So we understand the principle, but the application of that principle, little fanatical. So Sanatana Goswami, but to go, if we want to go higher, Charitamritam, talking about suicide. He came to the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu on the way from Vrindavan by divine arrangement. Somehow he contacted some sort of disease from bathing in contaminated water. So when he arrived in Mahaprabhu's association, he had some kind of like eczema on his body. And when Mahaprabhu would embrace him, he would see that would transfer to the body of Mahaprabhu. And he thought, my God, what am I came here for my upliftment, and look what, now I'm going to hell for sure. He's saying, it would be better to be dead than this situation. Right? So then, it comes to the year of Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu was saying, no, you don't understand. He said, my love for devotees like you, Haridas Thakur, Rup, Sanatan, Haridas, he said it's like mother and her baby. If the little baby's passing stool on the mother, she doesn't take it as offense. In fact, there in that section of the book it says, it compares to chatusama, meaning like camphor, sandalwood, like sandalwood pulp. Right? Baby poop is sandalwood pulp to a mother. Right? That's what Mahaprabhu would tell them. So you're like anything in relation to you is worshipable to me. I worship your divine forms. And then, but Sanatan thought, this is just too much for me. I'd rather kill myself. And Mahaprabhu said, what is it? Sanatan deho tyage, something Krishna nahi paye. He said, Sanatan, you can't get Krishna by killing yourself. He said, if you could, I'm ready to do it like 1,000 times in a minute. But you can't. That won't get you Krishna. Just finishing with the mundane body. Because as Guru Maharaj said, the body is just the outcome of internal thinking anyway. Karma, the seed of karma is in the mind. So just destroying your body doesn't destroy the root cause that generated the body. Another body will be generated, but compounded by the crime of suicide. So that's rejected. Das Goswami, in the absence, after Mahaprabhu and Srup Damodar left the world, because as Gurudev mentioned once, mysteriously in Koikali, the time of Rath Yatra, we do notice on the calendar it says disappearance of Srup Damodar. So, and generally we don't have disappearance day for Mahaprabhu Nityananda. But Gurudev was saying, if we think along these spiritual lines, we know many times in the Gangbhir, Mahaprabhu and his divine madness, devotees hear heart-breaking wailing from within the room when Mahaprabhu is expressing the depths of separation. As heartbreaking as that is, when they can hear the sound, at least they know he's there. If it becomes quiet, they're not sure, is he alive? The 10th stage of separation is death. So then they will open the doors. Because Mahaprabhu maintains his composure during the day, he's unable to maintain his composure in the evening, plunging the depths of Radha Bhav. So sometimes they open the door, And they find blood on the walls where he's been rubbing his face and in ecstatic transformation. But sometimes they don't find him, and there are no windows. So there's only one door with a guard, and there are no windows, and somehow he's not there. So many times Swarup Damodar leads search parties to the Chatak Parbat, the sand dunes that Mahaprabhu and his divine illusion takes to be Govardhan, to the sea, which he takes to be Jamuna. Sometimes at the Shingadwar, they'll find him like a giant golden pumpkin with his arms and legs inside and just glowing, some sort of ecstatic transformation. That's when the contraction, the expansion, this is the Sanskrit measurement from here to here, the joints and limbs all separated by this much. So his form, which is large to begin with, becomes even more extended and barely recognizable. They find him in many ways. They found him in the fisherman's net and so many things. But Gurudev points out, why does Swarup Damodar leave on this day? Because it's time for Rath Yatra and cannot find Mahaprabhu. We know Swarup Damodar, Swarupam Bibram Jagatatulyam. No one compares to him. He cannot live, it is Mahaprabhu Ditiya Kalevar, Mahaprabhu the second. He cannot live without Mahaprabhu for a moment, really. So if he rises on that day, and unlike all the days before where they find him at the Shingadwar, the Chatak Parvat, the Mahasamudra ocean, he cannot find him, then he leaves the world. So by inference, we can understand something. So Ranganath Das Goswami, who expressed in Bilapa Kusumanjali, Ashavari Amrita Sindhu Mai Katanchit, Kalo Mayati Gamita Kila Sampratamhi, that his only raison d'etre for living, for maintaining his existence, is his aspiration for Radha Dasyam, to serve the holy lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. Without Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar, means Radharani, Radha Baba Duti Subolita, Krishna, under the influence of the heart and halo of Radharani and Lalita, Swarup Damodar, he's saying, then I have no reason to live. So he contemplates going to Vrindavan and leaping from the top, giving dandavats to Radhakund Govardhan, and then climbing Govardhan and leaping from the top and killing himself. Now, this is expressing a particular level, magnitude of love and affection. People feel that way at different times. They don't necessarily follow through on that. So when he goes to Vrindavan, he finds Rupa and Sanatan and says, oh, I see Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar are alive and well within them. So he spends his final days in Radhakund and Govardhan, Nikata Nija Nivasa Dehi Govardhanatam, praying to Govardhan for shelter. And there, Kaviraj Goswami gets his association and service, and all the notes of Swarup Damodar are transferred to Raghunath, or transferred to Krishna Das, and appear in the Chaitanya Charitamritam. And he's humbly saying, I am arthritic. He's in his 90s. He's legally blind, so he can't see. He's arthritic. And the greatest literature to ever seen the light of day in all time, all space, all creations is being penned by his hand. They're saying, it's not me who's moving my hand, but rather Madan Mohan. He's become a superconductor for divine current. The total absence of ego assertion. But something's being asserted nonetheless. Jiva Goswami, by defeating the Digvijay Pandit, was accused by Sahajiyas of not having the proper humility. Same thing with Vrindavanas Thakur. Saraswati Tigers said, when Vrindavana says he's entreating his readers to take the mercy, the lotus feet of Gaur Nityananda, thinking what great wealth they will achieve in connection with those lotus feet. Then he says, after all this entreaty, if you don't accept the mercy of Gaur and Nityananda, then I want to kick your teeth in, kick you in the face with my left foot. So people say, how can he say that? Kaviraj Goswami is saying, I'm so long. And here Vrindavan Das Thakur is saying, if you don't take this mercy, I'm going to kick your teeth in. That's not humility. And Saraswati Tigers said, no, he's opened a new channel for their mercy with that foot, for those who would not take it otherwise. And Guru Maharaj said, just like a baby, little toddler, we see sometimes they're with their mother, and then like the parents are talking to someone, and then the kid kicks somebody, and then runs and hides behind the mother's skirt. Then what happens? The parents have to come and go, oh, we're sorry, and they're massaging the person like, he didn't mean it. Or, no. So he's saying, if Vrindavan Das will kick someone, then Gaur Nitai have to come and offer themselves to that person. So he's opened a new channel for their mercy. Right? When Jiva goes, Rupa and Sanatan sign the paper of the Digvijay defeated by, do you admit defeat? They're writing Bhakti Rasa Shastra, Priyad Bhagavatamritam, Lalitamanu, they're signing. Just, they don't want to waste their time with a man like that. But when that man comes to Jiva, and they're saying, going, well, now I've defeated everyone in Vrindavan. Someone said, well, not exactly. They have one disciple, Jiva. You need to get his name on the list. Then you can say that. Oh, all right, where does he live? Oh, around the corner. And so the man tells Jiva Goswami, I have, these are a list of all the people I've defeated, and you can see your guru's name there, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. Jiva Goswami, show me that paper. Here, you can see it for yourself. You know, tore it to pieces. Then Jiva Goswami annihilated that man. And then again the Sahajis say, oh, Jiva Goswami doesn't have the type of humility in Rupa and Sanatan. People accuse Saraswati Tigers of the same thing. Guru Maharaj writes, Shri Jiva Tejastiti. He's like Jiva Goswami in his vigorous defense of the Guru Varga and this line, Bhakti Siddhanta. So it was out of humility. Jiva Goswami is willing to sacrifice his pratishta, his name and fame, his reputation, in service to the lotus feet of Rupa and Sanatan. Similarly, Saraswati Thakur, he's willing to sacrifice that in service to the lotus feet of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj and Bhakti Vinod Thakur and the Rupa Nuga line. Sakayame mama namostu nityam dashayate mama rasastu satyam. It's similar, yeah, and they're saying here, Sakaya means intimacy. Dasya rasa. So Das Goswami, the Prayojan Tattva Acharya, it's also from Bilapa Kusumanjali. He's saying, and the way Guru Maharaj would paraphrase this, he'd say, if there is no superior servitor present, why would I enter that plane? It's one of the deficiencies of Mirabai, who does not recognize superior servitors. It's always Mira and Krishna. No Radha, no Lalita, no Rupa, no Rati. So Das Goswami is saying, if there's no superior, what would I be doing there? My focus is on the least seva, like Lalit, that's the line of Lalita Saki, Radha Mukunda Parasambhava Garabindu, Nirmanchani Pakarani, Nirmanchana Karani Krita Dehu Laksham. The greatest magnitude of intensity for the least aspect of seva. That's the line, the Rupanuga line, that's Srimati Radharani's. Right. Then, but in answering the call of service, then other things are possible. That's why it's also Puja Ragapat Gaurava Bange. The higher, more intimate, that's above. We're concentrating here and what's before us and what's appropriate and accessible to us. If the call for seva takes us into that higher plane momentarily, we're prepared to answer that. But only out of genuine service necessity, not out of curiosity. And Guru Maharaj is saying, passport is insufficient to enter that plane. You need a visa. Passport is a general thing. Visa is specific. You're granted a visa when the visa granting officer on behalf of that country determines that it's in the interest of that country to give you admittance. Not that it's in your interest. That's already a given. It's understood. But when it's determined it's in the interest of that country to give you admission, you're allowed. And that's the way it is. When it's determined, then it will be in the interest of the upper world to call you there, to give you admission there, then you'll enter. Not because you're curious, or you think it's interesting, or any such thing. Or you have some intense hunger and greed. Lolyam is a double-edged sword. It's told to be a disqualification and a qualification. When there's the greatest magnitude of eagerness for seva, that's a good thing. But just the greatest magnitude of eagerness for curiosity, tourism, spiritual tourism, thinking that world is pleasing to your eyes, mind, and senses as an object. You taking yourself to be a subject and thinking the name of Krishna, the form of Krishna, the qualities of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, the abode of Krishna, taking them to be objects of enjoyment, that disqualifies one. We have to understand, we are an object. That is the super subjective realm. And in Guru Maharaj's word, the super subjective realm means the aprakrita lila of Krishna. So those who are substantially in connection with that, like the Prayojan Tattva Acharya is saying, I worship the intimate plane, that remains above as worshipable, and I'm focused on the service that is before me, happily. Hare Krishna.